Hello, this is another video in my series which is looking at my N-Gauge model railway project called Finicky. And today I've got a slightly different video. We're not going to be looking at how-tos, we're not going to be looking at trains on the layout, scenery coming together. This one, I'm afraid, is a PowerPoint presentation, but probably the most important presentation, or probably the most important video that I'm going to do with regards to this project if you are running DCC and you're intending on running an analog locomotive. In short, if you are, don't. It's not a good idea. I've just killed one of my engines doing just that. Was I stupid in trying that? Well, I don't know. Let's look at the facts that led up to me doing it. When I was researching running my analog locomotive, I read through the manual that comes with the easy command control unit, and in fact I pulled the manual off of the website to make sure that I'd got the latest one. And in the manual, on page 4 under reference, it reads, if you already have a standard DC locomotives with DCC decoders fitted, you can still run them as part of your digital train system. However, only one DC locomotive should be run at any one time. Now, all of my locomotives are going to be DCC, except for this one. I wanted an 08 because when I was younger, it was the one locomotive that I actually got to drive, and for that reason, quite fancied one. And I wanted a relatively cheap model to do some testing of the wiring and the way the layout was behaving, and I picked one up at a reasonable price online, a lovely looking model, and I thought, great, I only want to run the one, so the manual is indicating that I can do that. But let's just read on a little bit further, and under digital and analog on the same page, the manual reads, the unit can operate 9 digital trains on addresses 1 to 9 and 1 analog as address 10. Brilliant, that's exactly what I want to do. So I've got 2 bits of information saying that I can do it. Reading further on page 6 under do's and don'ts, it reads that the DC locomotives can be run with easy command as either loco 10 or with the DC controller as an add-on. Now, I haven't got the add-on controller, but that would enable me to use the main controller to run my DC locomotives and hand the analog one to you as a buddy, and you'll be able to run the DC locomotive. I just want to run the one on channel 10, so I'm really good. This is actively encouraging me to do what I want to do. This is great news. So reading a bit further on, one of the only things that's a slight wobble, a slight fly in the ointment, is again on page 6 under do's and don'ts. The manual mentions a hum that might be heard from locomotives that are not fitted with decoders under DCC control. Okay, I will drop it on, see what the hum's like, see whether I can cope with it. I dropped my 08 on, the hum wasn't too bad, and I just started to move the locomotive by turning the power up, and within about 10 seconds I'd actually fried my locomotive. I'd blown the engine, or the motor, burnt the motor out in it. Very, very disappointing, and clearly I realised I'd done something wrong. So being a novice, jumped on the phone to Bachmann, and a very good service engineer took the time to point out to me that you should not run N-Gauge non-DCC locomotives on a DCC layout. They're just not suitable, even if you're using channel 10 for analog locomotives as per the manual. You just shouldn't do it. The noise that's given off shouldn't be confused with the 10,000 Hertz hum that's mentioned in the controller's manual. If you get a funny noise from your engines, just whip them straight off, because you may well find that the chip has not been fitted, or there's some other problems. So if you get any noise, just put it straight off the track and check the locomotive and see if there's an issue somewhere. The reason for this is that the voltage output by DCC controllers is higher than DC, and it's too high for N-Gauge locomotive motors to cope with. They just burn out. I remind you, I fried my motor in about 10 seconds, of the locomotive being on the track. So really, you really don't want to be doing it. So why is there wording in the manual stating that you can do it? And I put this question to the service guy, and he came back with a very straightforward and simple response. It's because it is possible to run larger scale analogue locomotives on channel 10 in analogue mode, but with care. When I sort of said, well, what scales and for what length of time, rightly so, he was non-committal. Obviously he's not going to want to commit to times because it can be a problem. So I think you really need to be very, very careful with your analogues, or do what I do and just don't run any analogue locomotives on DCC. Remember, I should put a little bit of a qualifier in here. This whole video is with reference to my Easy Command controller, this one down here. Your controller may well be different. I don't know whether the Dynamis controller enables you to run analog, whether Lens or Hornby or the others, and whether they will enable you to run N-Gauge more safely. But the advice I got back from Bachmann before they even asked about the controller was don't do it, because obviously DCC has a higher voltage. So I'm assuming it's going to be the same for everybody. So why is there no warning on the locomotive itself or in the box? It's a good question. I've suggested it. I would have liked to have seen a nice red sticker or a piece of paper in the box with some red wording saying not suitable for running on a DCC layout. Specifically as it was an N-Gauge model. Whether Bachmann will do that in the future, I don't know, but obviously I've put it forward as a suggestion. So the outcome. Bachmann have come to my rescue. Owing to the argument that I put forward about the paperwork that I've got encouraging me, the fact that their own website, Bachmann's website, which has a review of the controller, and during that review it says that you can run analog locomotives with a controller, owing to the paperwork, owing to the age of the model, and in the interest of customer service, I've learned that they are prepared to replace the motor free of charge for me. So all in all, I am very, very happy with the service. Arguably it was my mistake, but I think it was probably 50-50 with the information that I was working to, and being a novice, I've walked into a bit of a trap. And the fact that there are quite a few YouTube videos out there where people have reviewed the controller but haven't given this warning about N-Gauge locomotives on the channel 10 indicates to me that other people are probably walking into this problem as well. So like I said, I'm very happy. I'm not going to think twice before buying another Bachmann or Graham Farish. I've got a long list of models, both scenic models and rolling stock engines that I want to purchase, and I'm not going to think twice before buying from this manufacturer again. I've been really pleased. But I have learnt some lessons. My first lesson was avoid purchasing locomotives from eBay. Rolling stock I think you can get away with without too much trouble. Locomotives, I'm probably going to stick to my local model shop, because you have little or no guarantee if something goes wrong, especially if you've bought it from a second hand, so in other words from an eBayer who's bought it from a retailer, regardless of the length of time, mainly because the manufacturer is likely to need the retailer's receipt to support the warranty claim. Thankfully, the person that I bought my Cast 08 from took the time to send me the original receipt, so I had that to back up my argument, my claim with Bachmann. And so I was very, very fortunate. I won't say that you would be. Obviously if you buy from a retailer, then you've got some comeback there. Another lesson I learned is don't run non-DCC locomotives on DCC. Regardless of what your manual says, just don't do it. It's not worth taking the risk. The advice is to test run and run in the locomotive on a DC track, and I would recommend that you create a standard DC track, test track, well away from your DCC layout. I'm going to. I've got my old DC controller, which is underneath my layout at the moment for my lights and my points and stuff. But I'll either require another DC controller, or I'll be removing that and just running it on my test track on the kitchen table before a chip is put in. Don't even consider putting your non-DCC locomotives on the DCC layout. You just really don't want to be doing that. And like I said, don't even consider putting your DCC ready locomotives on your DCC layout without the correct chip installed. I've got a spelling mistake in there. It says ship. That should read chip, but a DCC chip installed. And if possible, my advice would be to buy from a high street retailer who will firstly fit the DCC chip for you and then test run the locomotive before you leave the shop. I've now done that on a couple of occasions with the model shop in Northampton, and I'm going to be buying all of my models from there in the future. So would I run analog on DCC? N-Gauge, definitely not worth it. I've experienced the results, just not going to go there. 00 gauge, for me, probably not. It was indicated that the motors are larger and that they might be able to cope with the extra voltage, but how long do you put them on the track for? How long do you run them for? And at the end of the day, the idea is to move it to a part of your layout where the locomotive will sit until you wanted to bring it back on again. And the idea with DCC is that your entire track is live. So theoretically, you would have your 00 gauge locomotive sitting on DCC for a long length of time, in which case I would imagine that you're going to fry it. For O gauge and larger, I'd need to seek some advice from a club. I really don't have any experience in that gauge, but any which way, I would continue to tread very carefully. I've been very lucky on this occasion. It was a very new model. I'd got a receipt from the guy that I bought it from. I had a good case, a good argument to put to the manufacturer, and Bachmann have stepped up to the plate. They've listened, and in the interest of customer service, they're replacing my motor for me. So I've been very, very lucky. Please treat this video as a bit of a warning, and don't run your analog N-Gauge on DCC. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again very soon with hopefully a more positive video, probably going to be to do with wiring up the Pico point motors, how to put those together, wire them up under the layout, which should be a good one. Catch you very soon. Bye bye.